during this time, though, you guys did the Usher, I Will.
Yes.
So how did that come about? And that particular...
With that situation, it was more or less, they asked Teddy to do a record, you know what I'm saying? And the label said no.
Which label?
The Teddy's label. I think it was like Interscope at the time. Said no.
Interscope. But he's a producer. What? I don't get it.
Well, Usher was a new artist, so Ted had this like stipulation, I guess, in his contract that he couldn't really work on new artists without a certain stipulation, without certain things happening.
Wow.
So, like when you get to be a super huge producer, sometimes the labels will put that, because that's a competition label. So it wasn't like Usher was on Interscope.
Okay.
He was on another label. So, what I'm saying? And there can be, it's like, Interscope had his own, R&B dude or whatever at the time.
Okay.
So it's like a competition thing. So they was like, well, I don't know about Ted doing the record. So what ended up happening is Ted was like, well, saying they couldn't stop us from doing the record. So we end up, I end up doing the record at the end of the day.
Okay. But then how does Ted's name get added onto it then? What happens with that?
Ted, like they wrote the record, like me and Ted did the production or whatever, and then they wrote the record. So they got a chance to put his name on there as a writer, so they still could use him as a writer, but they couldn't use him as a produced by.
Okay. But how did it? But for Usher stuff, what happened? Did you who did the work? Who wrote it?
Well, like I said, Ted and I originally put the record together. So of course he did the talk box and all that stuff. The record we submitted it to LA, and they liked the record. They sent Usher up. He had Eric Williams and I were working with the vocal, because he was on the record as a writer as well. So we were working on the record, getting the record done. Initially it was too high, so we were trying to get it done, but then there were parts that were like, okay, we can't even use this stuff. So
what do you mean?
We had to actually go back in the studio and drop the record to like 2 keys, and then so I had to kind of like go back in and do like a bunch of talk box stuff over, because it was too low for us to just change it. Like it ain't like now where you can just get in the Pro Tools and just pitch it down 2 keys and everything's great. It's like, then you couldn't do that. So we, I had to sit in the studio with the engineer John Haynes and just basically try to mimic, everything Teddy's doing on the vocalist, saying to put the background vocals back in 2 keys down.
Okay.
And, saying that's how we end up, doing the record. And then Usher came and re-sung it and the record was done.
Did you know at that time that he was, when you saw Usher, did you think, man, this guy's going to be, the star that he turned out to be?
I mean, he and I actually had that conversation, saying like, it's like, he was like, working with us, at the time, because we were working with Teddy, a lot of cats would come to the studio and they'd be asking advice from like anybody, the producers, that were like kind of close in. And being that I was like, Ted's right hand, it's like they were asking me stuff, and I was, I gave them to talk about, him being the next Bobby Brown. Like, dude, you really have a unique situation. You can be, because I knew he could dance. From the Usher, from the Puffy stuff, and it's like, I'm like, dude, you really got an opportunity to be like the next Bobby Brown. You just got to really sit in the records and make them your own.
Oh. Yeah, that was a hell of a debut, and I think the Puffy track and the Devontae one too, the one we did with Devontae.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, the record, the record came out, the record took off, and it was great. It was a great situation.
Yeah. Does it now, as a producer writer, when you do work on an album and it doesn't get released as a single? Do you get upset about that, or does it make a difference?
It depends. It's like, it depends on how they do a record. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it depends on how the label works the record. If they're working the record and the record is not doing anything, then not necessarily, because it's like the whole record wasn't there. But if the record is good and like, you know, you hope you get to a point where they use one of your records as a single. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think they probably would have used "I Will" as a single, but we had an issue with the guy that wrote "Penny for Your." You know, he was like basically it was saying like, you know, we took the record and we sampled this record and did that record, which, you know, that wasn't, you know, that case. It was like, you know, everybody knows the cliche, you know what I'm saying, the nickel for your thoughts, penny for your kiss. And we just they basically wrote another record.
Oh.
So they kind of held that record up in court with some stuff, and then so that record never came out as a single, but it was supposed to.
Okay, but then did you guys won the case or?
No, I mean, like at the end of the day, I mean, for me it didn't. It you know, it messed with some of my things at the end of the day. My funds on it from the production side, but I don't think that they handled it properly in court or whatever, and they didn't. I don't think they actually went to court and made sure that it got taken care of. So, you know what I'm saying, the guy ended up winning the case, and he took a lot of the percentage of the record as far as the writers.
Wow, yeah, because that you know, I asked people to vote for some of your top productions, and that was by over 50%. Most people prefer that track to some of the other things that you did.